You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Well, hey, everybody. Hope you're having a great day and off to a good start. This is Doug Thorpe, and this is another episode of Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Today, we're going to dive into the world of innovation. I've got a guest with a fascinating pedigree of innovation through many brand name stops on the road that you'll recognize. His name is West Stringfellow. West, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Where are you located? I didn't ask that yet.
I'm in Bend, Oregon.
Bend, Oregon. Okay. As a kid, Bend, Oregon was always a name that stuck in my brain. There was something, maybe a toy or something that was stamped with Bend, Oregon, and I thought that was awesome. Well, we had a fascinating talk in the green room as we were kind of ramping up, so I just want to dive right in. West, share with the folks the journey that you described to me. I asked the question, how did you get into this innovation game?
Yeah, so I just kind of stumbled into it. Originally, I started my career, I wanted to work outside, so I started my career as a park ranger and ended up getting injured. I cut my thumb off, and so I went into construction, and then I ended up getting injured. Truss fell, hit me on the head, so I went indoors. And when I got a legal internship, I was studying political science, wanted to be a lawyer. And at the legal internship, I thought I would be practicing law, but what I really was doing was running around Denver, Colorado, trying to find lost files. And so I was in a full suit, running around in 100-degree weather, just sweating, trying to find these files. At the same time, I was working as a research librarian for my work study program at school. And I saw students coming in and out of the school with books, easily returning the books. And I was like, how can the students return the books and the lawyers can't return the files? And so I went to the head librarian. She told me about this thing called an LMS, the library management system, gave me access for dummies. And this was, 1997. So no one was really good at technology at that time, and it was all very easy. So I ended up building an LMS for the law firm, and I went from being an unpaid legal internship to being a paid technology consultant. And we, every time a lawyer would take a file, we'd check it out just like you check it out in a library. And it hit me at that moment. There's a light bulb went off in my head, and it was like, wow, if I fix the things that I see that are broken at my job or that could be more efficient, I might be able to earn money. And I was paying for school, and so that was very important. And the next job I went to was a call center. And 1998, the call centers were all paper. So every time we did a call, we had to document tons of stuff. And I thought, well, what if we made this on internet? It'd be much faster. So I built a little website where you could enter the information. And again, I got promoted, made more money. And I just kept doing that for 7 years. I worked my way up from internships to ultimately being a product manager at a startup in San Francisco. And I was managing used books for Libris, selling used books all over the world. And I managed the back-end data processes. And we had to integrate with all the booksellers that wanted used books. And one of those was Amazon. And when we integrated with Amazon, I pointed out that the way that they were integrating was probably going to break. And they didn't agree, which is cool. But ultimately, it did break. And it broke exactly as I predicted. And they hired me. And when I got to Amazon to fix it, I had a ton of ideas where I thought, I was at the time managing the largest marketplace seller on Amazon. So I had a lot of unique problems as a seller. And in 2004, when I joined Amazon, they had just launched Marketplace. They were still figuring out web services. So I ran around the building and shared my ideas. And one of those ideas ended up becoming Amazon's first billable web service, which is pretty cool. And then ultimately, same thing that happened in my internships. I just every day came to work trying to find big problems to solve, and scaled at Amazon, ultimately launched their Prime Video, which was fun. And then ran fraud for Europe, ran marketing for Europe, or for the UK. And then in that process, got recruited to Visa to run innovation, then ultimately recruited to PayPal to run innovation. Then I built my own startup, and Target acquired it. And I went to Target and ran innovation for Target. And then built a Techstars startup accelerator, and it helped other startups grow rapidly. And now I'm founder and CEO of Howdo, where I teach entrepreneurs and executives how to scale their business and innovate their business.
Is there well, first, let me say congratulations on that journey. Quite a world tour, literally, of success in
Thank
that
you.
innovative idea. And one thought that comes to mind, I'm guessing there's a single common denominator in all of those experiences. And one, it was that idea of being curious and keeping your eyes open, keeping your mind open, and listening and seeing and observing what was going on rather than just drink the Kool-Aid and accept the status quo and move on with it, right? Which I think a lot of people, particularly at the bigger companies, are prone to do. It's like, don't make waves. Let's just, get on the wavelength and ride.
I
But
agree. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah. And we've talked of late. I've had several guests. We've ended up talking about that theme of curiosity, and so I think it's an interesting concept. And I don't want to get diverted on that, but I think it is very interesting. And it's my inference of what you described that you were able to do at these places because you'd say, "Hey, this doesn't make sense. What if?" You know.
Yes, exactly that. It started with just trying to make my own job easier, you know, and then as soon as I didn't study business, but as soon as I started to understand business, that all businesses just have very simple things. They need to make more money, grow revenue. They need to decrease costs while doing that. To be successful, they have to mitigate risk. They have to empower their employees. And ultimately, all that has to work in service of delighting the customer. And as soon as I understood those principles, I started to try to think every company that I joined, like for example, when I joined Visa, the reason that I was able to join them was at Amazon, we created this way of identifying fraud using machine learning, which is, a part of AI. And this was in 2005. And I was at a dinner in London called the Fraud Industry Curry Appreciation Society, FICUS. And I was complaining about how Visa had this specific protocol and it was very tedious and made customers unhappy. And I kept saying they should just use their data. They don't need to make customers do anything. And it ended up that a couple people down from me at the table, I didn't know this at the time, but was one of those people was the CEO of Visa Europe. And he heard me complaining and asked me about it. And then I just explained to him on the spot. I was like, look, I think you have great data. I think this is how I would use your data. If you're willing to have a conversation about it, I'd be happy to show you how that could be done. And that conversation turned into them hiring me and making me the head of innovation. So like I always try to find the things that cause the customer problem, right? And in that instance, what was bothering me was what was bothering the customer. And so I started thinking very deeply about how can we solve this problem for the customer? And then once I had that, framework in mind, it becomes very easy. You work backwards from what the customer is complaining about and try to find the simplest solution to resolve the customer's problem.
As you're describing that, I was reminded. I have a good friend who tells this story, classic customer service experience. I don't know if it was his cable company or telephone company or whatever, but he had an issue with a device that wasn't working and called in to try to get it fixed. And the service rep started saying, well, you're going to need to do this and you're going to need to do that. And my friend said his response was, no, I don't need to do anything. This is your service. This is your device. This is your situation. My question is, what are you going to do?
Exactly. No, exactly. I think so many people kind of think it's okay to externalize issues in the company. I see a lot of big companies, especially when I, come in at an executive level and get to see the whole company. I see a lot of big companies externalizing their organization. You'll have different customer experiences under the same brand because internally you have different teams and those teams see the customer differently. And I think a huge part of growth for most companies right now is figuring out that calculus internally of how do we work together to present a common customer experience, a common brand, a common voice, and minimize customer pain at every interaction. We had this metric at Amazon that I thought was so powerful. Every negative customer interaction requires 7 positive customer interactions to overcome. And most customers don't give you another chance. And so, at Amazon every week we had this thing called the weekly business review. It was every metric, literally every metric in the business, a couple hundred pages, about 170 pages, a couple thousand graphs in this deck, and we'd go over the whole thing. And the first 10 pages were customer metrics. And they were specifically, did we cause negative customer experiences this week? If we did, who did it and why? And what are we going to fix this week, like right now, to ensure that it never happens again? And so all of us were at that for the folks who are on the WBR, all of us were trained in Six Sigma, continuous improvement and defect reduction. And we would run Six Sigma on anything that was broken every week. And by doing that, Amazon cut their costs significantly because fixing customer problems is expensive, both number one, fixing the problem, paying for it with the customer services and whatever remediation you have to pay for, but also it's expensive because you lose growth. And we would fix these problems like the house was on fire, like literally. We would work 18-hour days, 6 days a week if we had to fix customer problems. And if there were no customer problems, it was business as usual. And so by doing that for decades, Amazon has built a system that is resilient, that is scalable, and that consistently provides customer value. And so few businesses do that, but that's Amazon's simple competitive advantage.
I had a guest on this show a while back that also had some insights and experiences with Amazon. And the story I recall them telling is that because of scale, mass, and power, Amazon went to manufacturers of child's toys and told them, stop packing your stuff in those hard plastic containers that
Totally.
you need a box cutter to get into, because parents and kids get hurt opening the packages.
Yeah.
And
I was at the meet. Jeff Bezos had a all hands meeting. I was at the meeting where he pulled out these huge shears, these massive like garden shears, and was trying to open a toy. And he was like, "Why are we doing this to the customer?"
Yeah.
I totally, that's a real thing. That's
well, good. You
big
ratified that story. It was a great story, and it's one of those you scratch your head a little bit. Is that really true? But yeah. So, being able to influence an entire market segment to make a change for customer friendly is pretty amazing, and it is. But it does make perfect sense. You can put that in a nice bubble wrap envelope and send it out, and it'll arrive unimpaired, undamaged, and you'll be good. But again, why externalize? Why push all that other stuff out on the customer?
Yeah, and like at every level, I think that it's funny because in 2001, Amazon and eBay were the exact same valuation. Exact. eBay was the preferred brand. More people loved eBay, and everyone thought eBay was going to win. They thought that was going to be the future of commerce. eBay didn't focus. I worked at PayPal while they were owned by eBay, and I'm not saying anything negative about eBay, but Amazon focused on the customer more. Amazon ruthlessly focused on the customer, and that focus caused Amazon. I think Amazon's worth a couple hundred times more than eBay in the market today. It's transformational. And to the level that, one of the reasons that Amazon built Fulfillment by Amazon so that they ship products for marketplace sellers is because customers were complaining that marketplace sellers were shipping products slowly. And Amazon Prime had a 2-day delivery window. And so sellers were complaining that they didn't have Amazon scale and efficiency, so they couldn't ship 2 days. And so, this incredible decision was made. Well, let's solve this problem. Let's build dozens of massive warehouses and automated facilities so that customers get their products on time and sellers can afford to ship. And it's that kind of working backwards from the customer with incredible vision that makes successful companies scale.
Yeah. Well, I sit here today, and I've, as a longtime, business focused individual, I've still not figured out the ultimate metrics on how in the world you can buy a $5 item and have it brought on a truck to your doorstep, because
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the unit cost of driving that truck, and not to even mention packaging the good and going through the distribution process to get it on the right truck to get to my address. But that's maybe a journey for another day to figure out how the math on all that works.
Well, it's fascinating that they can do that. I agree. And if you look at how they operated, they ran a loss. I mean, they lost money for I think it was like 20 years before they were profitable. They could have at any point turned the profit dial and just started producing more cash flow, but they reinvested everything and more every year to reduce the costs. Every year, they just kept trying to make the packaging cheaper, the shipping cheaper, all that stuff. The two like tiny, tiny efficiency metrics, like is the movement of the hand of the person putting the item in the box optimized. But what the bigger thing that they did, which I think is unique in business today, is they created entirely new industries like Amazon Web Services. I remember when we launched, it was historical pricing, was the name of the first billable web service. That was the idea that I proposed, and really grateful that they accepted it. When that launched, I remember all my friends telling me, and these are Silicon Valley people, that this was 2005 2004, and everyone in Silicon Valley was still, it was an industry at that point. They were like, why would anyone buy data from Amazon? Why would anyone want to integrate with Amazon? And I don't get it. Well, that confusion in the market gave Amazon a 7-year advantage. Amazon built web services for 7 years before anyone thought, oh, we should do that too. And because of that, Amazon has about $1 trillion in market value just from web services. And web services, if you think about it, the marginal cost of a web service is very low. Once you build the server, then it's just a cash producing machine. And so while retail can consume capital, getting that $5 item to the house, you're not going to make any margin on that. That's a negative margin item. But because they have things like web services, which are very, very rich in cash, they can subsidize the shipment and they get the customer. And again, the orientation here is trying to keep the customer central and then working backwards from them. They see they need new capital. And so if we need more capital, we either have to get it from Wall Street, we have to get it from venture capitalists, investors of some type, or we have to fundamentally produce capital. And what are leading indicators, where are green shoots that we see in the business that are capital rich? All right, can we scale those? And if so, how far can we go? Start spending money to explore. And it's that kind of constant, to your point, curiosity, that constant experimentation that makes them able to scale and afford to do crazy things like ship a $5 item.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's shift the gears a minute. You mentioned your latest venture is helping entrepreneurs really be able to leverage all of this great thinking and experience. So talk to us a little bit about that journey. Let's start with the idea. Is there a typical entrepreneur that knocks on your door or rings your email and says, hey, I'd like to talk?
I wish it was more consistent, to be honest, but no, it's like everyone from like a minister of education in Canada or Burkina Faso to, small startups that have no funding, and students to the very, very large Fortune 50 companies. It just all depends. The way that I started Howdo is when I was at Target, after they acquired my company, I was also running a Techstars accelerator and the vice president of innovation. So I was responsible for $77 billion of revenue and growing that. I was responsible for 30 million of venture capital and growing that. And I was responsible for dozens of startups who all had, a couple 100,000 in investment. And what was crazy is all of those capital levels were having the same conversation. At 77 billion, we're talking about how do we grow the customer, who's the competitor, what's our market, how do we get more investment, blah, blah, blah. At the seed level, companies with $100,000, same conversation. My own startup, same conversation. And so I started to realize that the principles of business growth are similar between the capital levels, and that we tend to artificially delineate or separate startups versus big companies. And I think that does us a disservice. Big companies think they have to hire like McKinsey to grow. And McKinsey's obviously does great work, but big companies don't need McKinsey to grow. Startups think that they need to hire big consultants to grow as well, or they need to hire experts. That's true because they're new, but the questions that they're asking are the same as the big questions. So when I left Target, I sat down and I wrote down what I thought the principles of business growth were. I shared those with my friends and it went viral. I put it on Medium after that, and in 30 days, people read that for 60,000 hours. It was insane. It was very, very viral. So I took it off Medium and I put it on a website called How Do. And that website, we get 2,000 people a week, and I spend $0 on marketing. And that was where I started to realize there's a big demand here. And about 50% of the people who visit How Do are from all over the world. In fact, at this point, every single country that has an internet connection has learned from How Do, which is cool.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it's about 200,000 people in total who've learned from the course, about 400,000 who've spent more than 3 minutes on the website. So it's pretty cool. And then, through that, I try to help folks understand the principles, because everything on How Do is free. So I started with my little notes, and then over the last 7 years, we've gotten to over 1,000 pages of world-class innovation training. It's all free. And the reason I'm making it free is, I love America. And I think that I don't care who anyone voted for. It's not about that. I think that for us to come together as a nation and heal, we need a better economy, and the economy needs to grow. And that the foundation of a growing economy is businesses that grow. If you're a big business and you grow, economy gets better. If you're an entrepreneur and you grow, economy gets better. And because the principles are the same, I thought we'd make them free. And so that's How Do. And then when folks need help implementing the principles, sometimes big companies or small companies don't want to necessarily try to read everything and figure out how to do it themselves. They just want to get it done. That's what people call me.
Got it. So are you building a team of other advisors that are going to participate in this as you scale, or is this just your life passion project now?
It's both. It's both. So one of the things that I've noticed right now is there's a lot of people in technology that are struggling to find work. Automation is literally eliminating jobs, and many of the big tech companies overhired during the pandemic. And so there's a surplus of incredible people on the market right now. And as I find projects, I try to pull in folks from my network, pull in folks who might be on the bench looking for work. And then I'm also building a piece of technology right now that is going to try to use machine learning and automate a lot of the advice, so that most advisors have a really hard, or most experts who are trying to help businesses have a really hard time trying to find business. And because How Do has so much traffic, I thought, all right, well, what if we just allow experts to advertise themselves on How Do by sharing their knowledge? So we're building a piece of technology that experts can talk to or upload their documents to, and that'll train in a machine learning paradigm, a machine learning platform that allows their knowledge to become part of How Do. And then when people use their knowledge, they get paid. And then we're going to build a paywall for the expert knowledge. And then if people use their knowledge and they want help, the expert who uploaded it has their face and their profile right next to the knowledge, and they can be hired. So we're trying to solve, we're trying to solve the kind of work discovery problem for experts, and we're trying to solve the knowledge discovery problem for folks looking to innovate.
That's amazing. And we can probably talk all day about that. So let me ask this. I know you don't tout yourself as a futurist, but what are you seeing in the I mean, I heard sort of the ethereal value statement of the U.S. economy and growth and belief in that. But what are you seeing on the horizon for small business?
For small businesses, this is the best time in the history of business to start figuring out what it means to innovate. And I say that because AI, when we talk about AI, I tend to use the words machine learning because let's just dive into that real quick if you don't mind. The AI is very, as we talk about it, like Chat GPT or Anthropic's Claude, those are very smart. Those are good AIs. But what they really are is a large language model, and that's not intelligent. It's just pattern recognition. And so while it feels intelligent, it's not a good decision maker. It doesn't understand sequences or processes. It doesn't understand the consequence of decisions. It has no idea what anything it's talking about is. It's just repeating a pattern. And so, at Amazon, when we build machine learning, or at Visa or at PayPal or the startup that I built that Target acquired, we automated many things and we use machine learning to make a lot of really high consequence, high value decisions. And to do that, we have to have structured data. So we have to know the customer via data. We have to understand our business and the data they're in. And what I mean by data is what is their cost of marketing? How many customers do we have? What is their demographic profile? How can we optimize our marketing using demographic information to minimize our costs? Simple things like that. And most small businesses haven't thought about their data. They haven't thought about their processes. And with AI waking everyone up, two things are happening. One, people are using AI to reduce costs, grow revenue, delight the customer, empower their employees, and mitigate risk. They're doing that today. And then there's people who are not doing that, and they are falling behind. And the most important thing for small businesses right now is to start understanding that this is a learning time. This is a big, which is very strange for many of the entrepreneurs that I talk to, many of the executives, especially of medium and small businesses. They're domain experts. They know what they're doing. They know how to do it. They understand their customer. They understand their business. The challenge is not redo everything you do and integrate AI and transform your business. A lot of people talk with these crazy high level, like, oh, it's going to change everything. It's probably not. What it's probably going to do, though, is make the businesses who use AI much more efficient. They're going to reduce costs very quickly. And when they reduce those costs, two things can happen with that capital. They could either take it, put it in their pocket, and go buy whatever toy they want, or they can reinvest it in the business into growth. They can reinvest it into new products, new marketing, new customer segments, new markets. And the businesses who are reducing costs with AI and reinvesting in growth right now are developing an advantage that looks and feels a lot like Amazon. It's going to be real hard to compete with businesses when they figure out how to reduce costs and grow revenue using technology. And the way that I see what's happening with AI right now is that, ChatGPT put a chat interface, like a messaging interface that we can type to, on technology that's been around since 2006, right? Like there's nothing new about that technology. In fact, what ChatGPT is built from, the T in GPT stands for transformer, and Google gave that technology away for free in 2015. Like it's been free since then. So, nearly a decade later, people are starting to see it and go, oh my gosh, this could really transform the business. It's important to note that many businesses have been trying to use that technology to transform themselves since 2005. And so, this is the time for small businesses to use technology to get ahead, to cut costs. To do that, it's time to define processes, understand their data, and understand how all that works so that they can create the positive capital cycle, create that virtuous feedback loop of capital. And so looking ahead based on that, I think we're going to see a growth pattern in the economy that looks very unique. We're going to see a lot of businesses scale, and we're going to see a lot of businesses stall or decline. And that is the opportunity right now. I think for I'm a huge fan of history, and the reason is for us to understand what's about to happen. This has happened many times in the past, and just like telephone operators didn't need to have jobs anymore, just like many folks who worked in the field were replaced with machines. Um, you know, People who used to make newspapers put the individual letters in by hand. Now we can simply print it. It's that kind of a moment. Now, is it going to take everyone's job? Well, scientists, and there's a wonderful research report where 1,500 AI PhDs provide their forecast on when AI will take everyone's job. Currently, it's like 2,130, like, a ways away. But that forecast reduced by 30 years last year. So it came sooner, 30 years. And as AI progresses, we might find there are moments where more jobs are taken rapidly as new technology comes online. And so, what does this mean for businesses? It means that this is a time to learn. And for people who are experts, for people who have not thought about learning for a long time, they got their degree, they got their business, they know their business, blah, blah, blah. This is a time to reevaluate many things. And it starts by understanding what the technology is, how the technology works, and how they can start applying it today. And it's not a linear process, which makes many people uncomfortable. But think about learning. When we were in school, it wasn't a linear process. You'd study a little bit of this, then you'd go over here and study a little bit of that, and blah blah blah. And then in technology, what I love about technology is that it's constantly changing. And so the more that business leaders become comfortable with learning, the more they spend a little bit of time, I would say every day, it's very important to spend 5 to 10 minutes at a minimum with GPT or Claude and just test it, try it. Ultimately, I think people who understand its capabilities, they start spending 3 to 4 hours a day using it to accelerate their thinking, to accelerate their processes. And it starts with leadership. Transformation starts with leadership. If the leaders aren't using it and understanding it and constantly learning and sharing their learnings with the teams won't do it. I've led transformation at some of the world's largest brands and companies, and if the leadership's not on board, nothing changes. And so it's real important for business leaders right now to be leaning in, learning, and sharing their knowledge with their teams and empowering their teams to do the same. Because I guarantee you, at every business, there is someone who loves AI. They may not tell you, but they're playing with it all the time and they're using it for their work. Those people are the culture carriers. Those people are the ones who are naturally going to change their behavior. And the more that leaders can empower those people to learn how to do their job better with AI, with technology broadly, because remember, AI is just a form of technology. LLMs are just one version. There are hundreds, literally, of versions of AI or machine learning. So the more that they start to learn how to do that, empowering those folks who are already excited about it, having those folks share their knowledge, the more the business starts to organically change. And that's the safest and most scalable and most durable way to change.
Well, as you describe all that, and I, for one, even at my age, I'm excited to be a part of that. And I'm always been an early adopter of technology throughout my whole career. I had a BlackBerry before anybody did in my sphere and domain. But as I've looked at that, one of the things I think about, and as many of my listeners know, I've been doing a lot of work of late in the space of entrepreneurship by acquisition, because in parallel to everything you just described, we have a giant seismic wave happening, as some call it the silver tsunami. Baby boomer owners and founders are wanting to exit their businesses that they've built. And these are businesses maybe with a 15, 20, 30-year legacy of market recognition, market share, reputation, goodwill, all of those things. and the boomers simply don't want to run it anymore, and maybe there's not a second generation to hand it off to, so those assets are ready for sale. And there needs to be, my prediction on the future here that's going on, there needs to be a disruptive shift in the way we've traditionally done that transition. For an owner to go to a business broker and say, I'm ready, I want to sell my business, what can you get me for it? That's the old model. And I think there needs to be some new development of a new way of, number one, equipping buyers, individuals who might have accumulated some personal wealth that could be invested in one of these ventures, but they've never had a job where they've had to run a profit center. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. So doing some training and education, getting them equipped and prepped, and maybe even supported by dedicated coaching and advisory help to get them through the process and into the transition of owning that business, to which you can apply a lot of these things that you just described, because the former founder owner is not interested in taking that next step. They're not interested in turning that page. They've built a business that has afforded a certain lifestyle for them. And it's like, why would I incur the brain damage of all that change?
Fair.
And it's a very real phenomenon. And 9 times out of 10, that's the reason these owners are saying, I'm willing to sell. I'm tired. I'm ready to retire. I want to move on. And I don't want to incur the next step it's going to take to continue to grow and expand my business. I'm done.
I think that's fascinating. I love M&A. I've gotten to buy a couple companies and have obviously sold mine. And that's fascinating. I never thought about that generational transition. So what do you think the needs of the customers are, both on the buy and sell side? Like what do you see as being their biggest pain points?
Well, you're talking about the parties that would be in that transaction.
Yes.
Well, for the sellers, there's a degree of education that has to happen. One thing that I've seen going on is that when they first start thinking about selling their business, what do they likely do? They go to church or they go to the bar, whichever is their preference, and they talk to their buddies and say, I'm thinking about selling my business. What do you think it's worth? And numbers start getting thrown around that probably are not valid. And somebody gets locked in and says, oh gosh, I've got all this equipment. I've got this book of business. I'm going to declare it at $8 million. And then they start associating that with the lifestyle they want to live for the next 30 years. So now they're saying, I got to get this number. Well, there's no foundational proof that that's a valid number for that business. When you take the real numbers and run it through common, standard, acceptable analytics and valuation methods. So there's an education there. And sadly, part of the equation that I believe, and all respect to anybody listening that I'm getting ready to step square on your toes, brokers don't necessarily serve that need very well categorically.
No.
Categorically.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. 100%.
Are there big bubbles in the bell curve of brokers that are amazing and do wonderful work? Absolutely. I know a whole list of them. I've met them and I've worked with them. So there's some great service providers there, but that's a piece that needs to get done. So you have to have a realistic expectation when you go to market if you're the seller. Flip that around and you talk to buyers. They need to be able to learn how to perform due diligence, how to ask the right questions, how to run their own analytics and rationalize this hopefully already valid price point they've been offered to rationalize into their investment strategy. I can afford that. I'll do that number. And here are the terms with which I will do that deal. And you bring that together, and now you've got a viable, healthy transition of all this wealth.
That was first off extremely well articulated. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it sounds like an enormous opportunity. You're making me want to go do some research and build a business around this.
Well, I've done some of the research, talk about data, and I've put a flag out there that says, by my calculation, there are potentially about 10 million Americans caught up in the corporate grind right now that are in the 10 to 15 year journey mark, age and tenure. They've done the corporate grind, the white writings on the wall. They're probably not going to go higher than X in the organization, but they're smart people. They're talented, gifted, capable. But the corporate game is the corporate game, and that's what they're going to have. And the government, U.S. government via the SBA, has already picked up on this, and for years now, actually pre-pandemic, they were predicting this tsunami that's getting ready to happen. So the SBA lending standards have been adjusted to accommodate. And one of these 30, 40 somethings that might be thinking about wanting to become an entrepreneur can get financing via the SBA and get a deal up to a $5 million price point with only 10% down.
Wow.
And half of that 10% can be satisfied by the seller agreeing to carry a note to make the full capital stack for the purchase.
Wow.
And so, do the math on that. $5 million top side, you need 10%. So that's 500,000, and 250 of that can be carried by the seller. So a young person with a growing family who has 250 in the bank can buy one of these cash flowing businesses. And by the way, at those numbers, the EBITDA or SDE, whichever you want to talk about, is usually somewhere in the ballpark of 400 to 800,000 a year. So if you do the simple math and hit that bogey and take all your money back, you've made your investment in the first year.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
It's a fantastic opportunity. Now, in the coaching and advising that I do for those businesses, I certainly never tell them to take all that money out and pay themselves back right away. I want to do the Amazon thing, plow that back in. Think about some of these innovations and these opportunities that you can use. So, and there are a lot of them out there. And oftentimes these businesses, they have a reputation for good service. Again, good market name recognition in the footprint that they provide, but they haven't done anything to really grow that or perpetuate that. And so take a home services company that just focuses on tickets. How many calls do they get to come out and fix something? Well, a lot of them have gone to sort of the service package annual membership route. For $300, we'll come to your house every quarter and we'll do X, Y, and Z as a preventative maintenance check, keep you ahead of the game so that you don't incur the big ticket items down the road. So, but all kinds of combinations of ways to do that, applying technology to manage the database and monitor your calls and monitor the patterns of the service need.
Exactly.
All of that is ripe for the taking.
I mean, so that's fast. I mean, literally, I'd love to continue this conversation with you because that's exactly what How Do is designed to do. Like, I have some of the most robust due diligence questions that you're going to find, and I can open source those so that people can understand in the first instance how to value their own business, and then on the buy side, how to understand how to assess the business. I agree, due diligence is one of the most difficult things, and I've tried to buy companies where people think their valuation is, 5, 10x what it really is on the market. And so I agree with you that it's very important for business owners to understand the multiples associated with their revenue or with their EBITDA, and to understand the market comps, right? Because everything that an investor does is going to be based on other companies that have sold. And so getting visibility into that, getting visibility into your own company is extremely important. Thank you for pointing that out, that opportunity. That's fascinating.
Well, we can certainly do that. Talk more. Maybe I'll have you back for a second episode and we can really get into it. But I am looking at the clock, West. We really need to wrap this up.
Yes, sir.
As you might be able to tell, I'm fascinated by this and very passionate about the whole innovation idea. And so thank you so much for everything you've shared.
Thank you for having me, Doug. I appreciate it.
Well, folks, with that, we're going to try to wrap this up. At this point of the show, I always like to remind people, if you're listening on your favorite streaming service right now, we do have a video version over on YouTube, channel by the same name. That's Leadership, powered by Common Sense. Hop over there, check out our archives. We're coming up on episode 400 pretty soon. It'll be another new milestone in this show. Happy to hit that soon, and look forward to seeing you there. And we'll have a big celebration when that one drops. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. Go out there, make it a great day.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.